Are humans inherently good or evil? This is a question that has haunted philosophers and scholars and thinkers for centuries. The verdict of human nature is more than just an intellectual curiosity. This is more about understanding your potential, your choices, and the world around you. Stick around to find out whether humans are actually good or evil, because this will actually affect the way that you view yourself and the world around you. Now, the reason I was faced with this question was something really simple, was something really interesting, yet simple. It was a simple debate that I got in with one of my professors at the university. And the debate was, we were talking about how the debate, basically, it was not a debate, it was more of a discussion. And it started with, we were talking about how there is war going on in the world, and how there is so much injustice and there can be so much evil. And we also talked about how evil is presumably prevailing for histories. Like for all of human history, what we see is that evil has been prevailing. Now, this begs the question that for some reason, I beg the question that if evil has been prevailing for the history, for the majority of the history, why would somebody be good? Why don't just be evil and do that? So it was really basically a really interesting thing that got into it. And basically we concluded to the answer that, are humans good or evil? And the common answer, I've by that time, it happened tomorrow, so it happened yesterday. So by that time, I've asked this question to a lot of different people, and the answer that I get is just simply yes, humans are savages. And based on whether the person is like, where the person, based on their own kind of which philosophy that they really adhere to, they come up with their own thing. Like, okay, so if somebody is a religious person, let's say, he would say that we need religion and divine guidance to control our savagery, and that is the only thing that we would do. If somebody who is more in morality and what do you call it? It's on moral ethics and that stuff. They would say that we need moral ethics to preserve our, to like really let go of our savagery that is still there. It's just we have to rise above it in a sense. But I think a really interesting point in our discussion was that we talked about this experiment, and I would like you to consider this experiment, this thought experiment, if you will. And let's consider this thought experiment that somewhere in the first world country, you can take America for example, but the reason we are taking America is not for personal reasons. It's just it's a very developed first world country. You can apply this to any country in the world, but we are taking a developed first world country because people think that presumably there is where morals and all of that are really flourishing, where humans are really flourishing, and where progress is really flourishing, and it actually is. So let's take that example. And the lights out experiment is really simple. Let's say in a state of America, for an hour or two, there is a total blackout. Like there's no communication, there's no electrical energy, there's no sense, like you cannot call the police, you cannot contact any authority. So you're basically left on your own. Yes, there are neighbors around you, but you are just basically left on your own. And you're living there. Now the experiment, as as my professor, he portrayed it. It was not an experiment. He just made an argument, but I thought about it as a thought experiment. Like, if you're living there, what do you think will happen in those 2 hours? Would people actually come out on the streets and start killing each other? Yes, that might happen in some parts of the area, because now it's not. There's no surveillance. Like there's no police. You cannot call the police. And that kind of stuff. But would it actually be real that people just come out and do bad things, do evil things, just because they're not being surveyed, or they're not being held upon by laws? Because nobody will notice. Yes, they'll notice later on, but nobody will know. So you do have the capacity at that time to be really evil. If you're living in there, would you actually do that? What's the answer for you? The answer for me personally is, I don't think so. And the answer for you, I think, is also, I'm speaking for you, is I don't think so. But there is a really good chance that there would be some lootings going on. there would be some killings going on, there would be some all of these things going on. But can you take that? And the person that I was talking to, he actually portrayed it as if this was a real problem with our morals, as if that we are really immoral people, that we really derive pain from hurting other people, that we're really evil, and we need guidance, or we need some morality to just really. And yes, to some extent I agree, but to the extent where you think that if you do this thought experiment, if you think that let's say you're a Wall Street banker living in the state wherever you are, and this experiment happens, that there's a total blackout, would you actually get on the streets and just go out and kill a bunch of people just for the sake of killing them? Are there people who do that, by the way? They just kill people for the sake of killing them? Yes, there are. But how many in population are there? So keep this thought experiment in mind as we go along the episode, and we'll keep referring back to it. This experiment is very important. Now, the thing is, there's been a lot of debate. There's a lot of debate. Like, are humans good? Are humans evil? Are we? What are we? What is? There have been scholars. There have been religious people. There have been religious leaders, scholars. There have been thinkers. There have been philosophers, and there have also been scientists who have been trying to answer this question. But we can clearly say that we are still in the dark. But that doesn't mean that we don't have any answer. It's just we have a lot of different hints as to whether humans are good or evil. Now, the first thing that we need to understand about this is that there's a flaw in our thinking when we think about when we ask the question that are humans good or evil. There's what we call there's a presumed argument in there, and the presumed argument is that goodness, and the way that we define goodness in the social sense, is social harmony, or universality, or caring for your neighbor. But you can say that social harmony is what actually there should be. That's the presumed argument that's the presumed argument behind the question that there should be social harmony. But then the question then we ask is like, are humans good or evil? What we want is mostly that. And even when I was asking, is my inclining was towards that. Okay, let's move towards social harmony and stuff like that. We think that this is what the core of life should be, but when we go into science, it actually tells us something very different to what we are actually talking about: harmony and peace and good things to happen, or the right kind of things to happen, because good or bad, they're subjective terms. But we can say that, okay, the right kind of things to happen. But the universe doesn't work like that. The universe is actually programmed to work in the opposite direction. And this is very evident from the second law of thermodynamics, which we call the law of entropy, or the law of increasing entropy. Now, the entropy, this law states that the entropy, which is the measure of the disorder of any system, of any closed system, this law states that the entropy of a closed system will always increase. So what this means is that the randomness of the universe will always keep increasing, that the disorder in the universe will always keep increasing. And if you want to decrease it, you actually have to exert a lot of energy on your side to actually decrease the entropy of the universe, or entropy of the society, or entropy in any closed system. The closed system can be you, the closed system can be your room, the closed system can be your house, your family, your society, or the country that you live in, or the entire earth, the solar system, whatever you call it. And basically, the lesser entropy there is, it allows more of the condition for life to flourish. So if we want life to flourish, we want to have lower entropy. And if we leave things by themselves, what nature is designed to do is to increase entropy, is to always increase the disorder. In other words, nature doesn't really care about you, or me, or humans, or any other species. It doesn't have a bias towards, I want to make humans survive because they are the smartest species on the earth, or they're gifted. It's not like that. Nature is out to get you. And we have to have built these civilizations, these structures around us, to protect us from that. And protect us also from our own savagery as well. We'll get into that in a second here. But first, we have to say that the law of entropy is a fundamental truth. You cannot escape it. Okay. Now, with that said, that We have built and we have also discussed that we have to build systems, we have to build these, we have to exert a lot of energy. And the reason, by the way, we need to do this is because there are a lot of things, there are a lot of ways for things to go wrong, and there are ways to think for things to go right. It's just really simple to see. And a really good experiment is just, what if you don't clean anything in your room for 10 days? You'll see what entropy is. You'll see that the dust and all of that, it just keeps increasing. So in life, in society, in civilization in general, you have to work against nature, you have to work against this law. And by the way, it requires a lot of energy on your side. As I said, you have to exert your energy, you have to exert your brains, you have to exert all of this to not be subject to disorder. Now, what this means is there's this theory of civilization that actually describes that actually puts forth the point that humans are basically savages. And this theory it's date back to Greek times, and it's called the veneer theory of civilization. And the veneer theory of civilization says, and this is what we actually got to, that as we were discussing, and as I was discussing this with one of my friends, said that what humans basically are, it puts forth the point that what humans basically are very savage people. Really, we are evil in the real sense of the word. And what we have to do is to, in order to protect ourselves from this evilness, we have to build civilization around us. And the civilization, this theory says, is just like a thin veneer on top of our evilness. And it can come out any time. A good example is, what if I take you from your habitat where you're living in civilization, and I throw you in the jungle? I don't provide you with food, I don't provide you with water, I don't provide you with anything. 10 days when you'll be hungry, you will be a savage in the real sense. That means you'll kill animals, you'll do anything that you need to do in order to survive. Now that is what humans are. That is what basically the main point of the veneer theory of civilization is, that humans are savages. And civilization is what protects us. And civilization, in all of its rules and laws and all the cultural rules and all the it also includes religious rules in there and religious moral principles. All of them are there to really hide us from our own savagery, from our own evilness that is inside of us. But there's a thing that in the theory that I don't necessarily agree with. We'll talk about it in a second. But let's take that fact. Let's say that, okay, that is the case. Let's say that, okay, yeah, that's you're true. The veneer theory is true. That the veneer theory of civilization, that I'm evil, and just because I am civilized, because I have electricity and I'm sitting in an environment where I can get enough food. I don't have to worry about keeping a roof above my head. I don't have to worry about the next meal. That's why I'm civilized. That's why I'm wearing this shirt and I'm speaking in a very civilized manner. But what if I have not eaten in 10 days and I don't have a roof above my head and there are animals out there to get me? Will I be speaking in the same manner? Will I be behaving in the same manner? I don't think so. I agree with you. The thing is, in that sense, we have to understand the relationship between man and nature. And the relationship between man and nature is as follows. That we are basically programmed by this thing called nature. We have to understand that we are not here by it's not like when we are talking about humans, when generally people are talking about us humans, we being so wise and smart in all our greatness, we think that we are like we think that the rest it's more like a covert thing that we do, that we think that all of the rest of the world is this separated and humans are this separated and humans are ruling the world. We actually are, but the distinction we make is that we are somehow, there's a big line between the rest of the world, the rest of the species, living things, and humans. Actually, there's not. We are this part of the same process that has made them. And we are actually a byproduct of the same process that has made them. And again, nature has no biases. Nature doesn't really care. And this was the case for most of human history. This was the case because if we see human history, when we were living in the Stone Age and we were living like cavemen, we see this, that there would be The Malthusian theory of population, I think, of population control or something like that. The Malthusian law, I think, is that we humans, we always try to grow in sense of our population and our resources, and we always try to do that, and we always growing. But nature doesn't allow that. So every time, now and then, population, it grows exponentially, but our resources, it says, it grows arithmetically. So when our population actually exceeds our resources, nature steps in for a correction, and nature's way of correcting you is it's very brutal. It's in the sense of a natural outbreak. Either it's a disease, like the outbreak that we saw. However, this one is very different from the previous one that we have had. The other examples are famine. For example, there would be no food and people would be starving off to death. The other example would be a natural disaster, just like an earthquake or a flood or a drought, and people would die in that sense. And that is nature correcting, wiping humans off the face of the earth, because it's correcting. It's way of correcting. It's way of keeping balance, and it's just treating us just like any other species on the planet. It's just treating us no indifferently. And so, in that sense, let's say nature has actually programmed us to have a fear of death. So we have this thing called survival instinct, and nature has also put us in that environment that is basically, it's very tough. It's an environment where you have to fight for survival. It's an environment where you're not given everything else. So if I'm in that environment and I have a programming backing me up, and the only way for me to survive is to become a savage, can you really blame me for my savagery? And then you cannot say that humans are inherently. Then the whole argument of humans being good or evil actually loses its sense, because it's not evil. It's just the way things are. I was really using the word blame when I was discussing this, and a really good example that one of my friends gave is that one of my friends and teacher gave is that is it really? Can you really blame yourself for having an ear? You can't. Can you really blame yourself for having teeth or having eyes to see? Just like, can you really blame yourself for your programming? So it's not about blame. It's just the way a thing is. It's just the way that thing is. So we have to understand that. And yes, another perspective of this is that if a lion rips a gazelle in shred, would that actually make the lion evil? I don't think so, because that's just the nature of how things are. That's nature, exactly. Now, before we move on, I would like to call you to our lean back. I would like to call you. ये वाला part cut करना दानी. Before we move on, I would like to call you to subscribe to our newsletter called Truth Thursdays, where every Thursday I send bite-sized wisdom for you to become a better, more wise human being. If you have not subscribed, the link to do that is in the bio. Please do that, and I'll love to see you there. Now, with that said, now we have understood that nature really has no biases. Nature really is. There's no need for. We also have a need for survival. But I said for the final point, I would say that as I said that there's this thing called the veneer theory, and I really don't agree with it. It's because a lot of the research in the last 20 years, a lot of the research in anthropology, sociology, and even psychology as well, is really pointing us to a different direction. Yes, we also agree that humans are the planets, humans are the species which are ruling the earth, and Homo sapiens are the ones which are ruling the earth. So why are we those kind of? Why are we the people who? Why us? Why not apes? Why not baboons or something of that nature? Or like really, why not the dinosaurs? They were great. They were big, and they had so much. They had so much advantages over us. Why are they not ruling the earth? And the answer to that is because humans have evolved this need for cooperation. We're really good at cooperating for survival, but we're really good for cooperating. And we see that there was a research done in Yale and Harvard. I made that Yale. There's a new university in case you want to get admission. So there was a research done in Yale and Harvard, and it actually showed that when given a different decision making task, the first instinct that these people, these subjects, would actually go for was cooperation. So it was not that humans being are selfish and they actually wanted to take the advantage of other people. So they actually went for cooperation, and selfishness, it actually came much later when they thought about it, and it took some time to think about it, and then that's where selfishness came in. So cooperation is a survival instinct. We were really good at forming communities. We were really good at sticking together, and we were really good at facing common danger and facing the common enemy and forming those civilizations which have which has evolved us to a point where we have grown out of that. So we also have cooperation as the first instinct as well. The second thing is, you see, when there is this when we have this we all have needs, and I describe that in the Maslow describes that very best in his hierarchy of needs, and the very basic ones are survival. The very first the hierarchy in the hierarchy of needs, the very first needs are survival. And so basically, when those needs are met, when the basic needs of survival, that you don't have to worry about putting food on the table or a roof above your head, or you have to keep the wolves out of the door, you don't have to worry. When you don't have to worry about those, you have the cognitive luxury to think about bigger problems. You have the cognitive luxury to think about bigger things. So it's just that you grow out of that shell into a bigger sense, in a bigger picture of the world. So it's not, and then there's also a need for cooperation. There's also a need for love and connection, as Maslow said. So we also have that part of ourselves. So if there is evil within us, are humans inherently good or bad? If there is evil within us, it's at the very basic core level. And if we can override it, and we can grow to much better, much optimal levels of functioning. Now, this also doesn't mean that we are very friendly creatures, because we can also be very evil at times, because there's no species on Earth that has made the decision. You don't see a group of penguins saying that, okay, let's kill those group of penguins, let's fire guns at them, let's put them in prison, or let's subject them to torture. We don't see penguins or apes or any other species doing that. Only humans are the very intelligent species who have done that. We've also seen wars and all these things, but there's a really good point in here as well that we must discuss. That, we think that when we put the argument that humans are selfish and we are evil, we think that we derive pleasure out of pain, in the sense that we are sadistic, that we are really sadistic people. Like, if the lights out experiment, if the lights go out, you'll actually, is there a chance that there might be a sadistic person or a psychopath or a sociopath actually living there, and he would go out on a spree killing as many people as possible? Yes, but the chance is very rare. These sadistic people are very rare. But mostly the crimes that we commit as well, there are two reasons. First is, there always will be a section of society that would feel that would have this kind of deprivation within themselves, and they would take out that deprivation in say less optimal forms, in the form of crimes. Now, when we talk about wars, for example, the reason behind war is not a sadistic one. It's not an emperor that gets up and say, let's kill some people for the fun of it. Let's get ahead and let's just kill these people, because why not? There are these people who do that again, but they're not emperors. In fact, wars are very moral crimes. For example, in the World War II, in 1945, 1946, when the German soldiers were set to come back, just come back home, you're losing, they actually stayed. And the reason the reason psychologists at that time think that they stayed was because they were brainwashed. But actually, when they interviewed some prisoners of war, they actually found out that they stayed because of comrades, because of friends. They had that sense of cooperation, and they thought it is a moral responsibility that extends beyond themselves, that they have to take care of their friends, and that's why they stayed and they fought. Now, if you think about that, that's not a person who is sadistic. That's not a person who's killing the other person just because he enjoys it. It's a person who feels that he has a moral responsibility and he has to do this thing in order to fulfill that responsibility. So wars are moral crimes. It's not that even right now as we speak, there's a war going on between Israel and Palestine. Even that, it's not about one person is there. It's not about, yes, there are sides to it. Yes, there are, and by the way, I'm very careful when I'm saying this because I don't know much about the history of it. So the thing is, it's not like a person you just got up and said, okay, let's just kill a few people. It's more, there must be an other reason to it. There must be another reason to it. The problem, however, is with us forming cooperation is that we don't generally tend to see beyond our group. So for example, if we have cooperation, let's take a football match for example, our cooperation will only extend to our team members. And by the way, in a football match, if your cooperation extends beyond your team member, you're fired. You are not on the field. But let's say let's take that in an example of in a religious example. For example, the cooperation or the empathy that we feel would as that a person as a Christian would feel would actually just, if he's a devout Christian, there's chances that his empathy would only extend to the circle of Christians. Or if you're black living in America, your empathy, there's a good chance that your empathy might not extend beyond. And now there are people who have grown beyond that. There are levels, developmental levels on that as well. But mostly we see that it's really hard for us to see beyond our own groups or extend our empathy beyond our own groups. That actually makes us do really bad things sometimes. But again, the point is that is not a selfish, sadistic reason to do that. They actually think a lot of the wars that have happened, people have actually thought they're on the right side of the thing. A lot of the wars that have happened in the name of cultural benefits, in the name of political benefits, or in the name of religious uplifting, all of them, people thought that they're actually on the right side of stuff. That's why it's right for them to kill the other group of human beings, because that is a moral thing to do, because that is a moral responsibility that they have. So now, with that said, are humans good or bad? What I think is, I'll conclude with this, is that there's a very basic core of us that is that we have that survival instinct, and in systems where we reward people for being selfish, people will be selfish. But in systems where we reward people to cooperate, because we are highly adaptive creatures, we have to adapt to our environment. That's the only way that we can survive. So if there are systems, where we reward cooperation and empathy and stuff like that, we can become cooperative, empathy, and all that. And modern society is very much that of a system where we reward cooperation and empathy, and that it's just we have to develop enough to extend that beyond our societies and to other societies. And I hope to see a day where we will develop beyond our level of ethnicity, and our empathy would grow to a world and a cosmic centric view. So with that said, I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care. Enjoyed watching this video? Don't forget to watch this video on my side. It also relates to physics, philosophy, and personal development. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Continue seeking truth and become a truth seeker.